Welcome back, everybody. I'm Travis Richardson, and this is Sean Anthony. And today we're going to discuss the VarioRip 310-2M. It's an optimizing rip saw. So let's go ahead. We'll just, you saw a few boards run there, and we'll kind of go over what we were actually doing when Sean was running those boards. So we'll walk around to the front of the machine. On this machine in particular, we have a width measuring sensor. The width measuring sensor is how we measure the incoming board to get the width of it, and we'll have multiple sizes programmed into the machine, and what happens is it looks at the width and then optimizes the material so you can get your best yield on the board. Another thing that the width measuring actually ripped. So this has been a great product for us because in the past the only way to actually log this type of information pertaining to your incoming and outgoing material was with an in-feed system. So with this system in particular, it gives you the advantage of two machines in the past, but kind of combines them down to a standalone rip saw. Of course, on this machine we do still have in-feed systems if you want to get a little bit more production potentially, and if you want to have a little easier on your back to have an in-feed, you're not handling the material as much, it's a great solution. But this machine has been a game changer for ripping in general, just because of the benefits that you can now achieve with a standalone saw and width measuring. So what we'll do now is we're going to take a look at the controller. So on the controller here, you can see that we have different pre-programmed sizes. So in this order in particular, we're looking for 1.75, 3.25, 3.5, 4.75, 5.25, and 6-inch. All right, so when you put a board up there, it's going to measure the width and then choose from these sizes to give you your best yield. This machine in particular has two moving blades, but on this setup, as you can see, we have a fixed pocket and then two moving blades. So on this particular setup, we have up to 3 pieces coming out on every board. You don't have to have 3. A lot of guys will run with two moving blades and one fixed blade, but it just depends on what you're trying to achieve. So also on the screen here, what we're doing is we're tracking the amount of lineal footage produced. So if you're a just-in-time operation, we're going to actually be tracking your lineal footage as you rip it. So when you hit a certain amount, you can stop going after that size. So that's basically what all this data is up here. And I'll get Sean to come over and maybe show us a little bit of background information on how we put these sizes in. You want to go ahead and try to build a cut list for us, Sean? Sure. So what he's doing now, he's going to create a new cut list. He just named it 4-5 for an example. All right, so now he's going to put the sizes that he wants to rip and a quantity. You can also do a piece count if you wanted to as well. So he wants to rip 1.5-inch pieces. The price is a value, so that helps with the optimization where you can go after specific sizes that you'd prefer to get. Here he put in 500 pieces. He wants 500 lineal feet he would like the machine to stop at. And then we can also do a length requirement. So if you wanted to rip 1.5 only in a specific length, if you had an in-feed, you could do that. All right, so now he's going to rip a 2.5-inch piece. He wants to get 250 feet of that and a length on it. All right, so right there he just created a new cut list. He wants to rip 1.5-inch and 2.5-inch pieces, 1.5 inches, 500 feet, it's going to stop ripping it. 2.5, 250 feet, it's going to stop ripping it. So that's the idea about how the controller works and how we create a cut list. Something else we can do interesting in here is look at some of the maintenance and the background information behind. So here we're looking at a preventative maintenance schedule. So that's been a big push for us. It's always been a big push for us to properly maintain your machine, but now we're just trying to make it easier. So it'll tell you, track the hours, when you need to check specific items on the list. And then as you complete those items, you check them off, and you'll be able to know exactly where the preventative maintenance is. So just a good checks and balances system, trying to make it as easy as possible to actually maintain your machine properly. All right, after that, we can look at the setup of the machine. So these are just all different parameters in the machine. So we have basically the same type of software throughout the machines. It's just customizable to the machine that you have. So for example, this same software might be the same as on a one moving blade machine, right? It's just different parameters that we'll check off. Here's an area, if you ever change a fixed pocket on the machine, you can easily program the machine to add that fixed pocket to your optimization. So all this is done to try to make this process as easy as possible so we can manufacture in a just-in-time environment and not spend hours setting up the machine, or have one individual that's the expert on the machine and he's the only one that knows how to run it. So we like to have it where everybody can kind of operate the machine successfully. That's the idea. All right, another thing we got on this machine is safety. Safety is always a big point when it comes to the Weinig Group and all their companies. So what we've done is we have kickback fingers throughout the machine. All right, we've got a set here, a lower set, an upper set. Then inside the machine we have another set, and then we also have Safety Plus. So Safety Plus is a patented product. It's Kevlar and plastic sheets inside the machine, which will not allow splinters to get back out of the machine, or greatly reduce the probability of anything coming out of the machine. If you've ever been ripping on a table saw, you know how dangerous it can be. Any machine has the capability or the ability to potentially kick back, so we try to protect that as much as possible to avoid any instances of a kickback. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the hood. We'll kind of look under the hood for a minute. So this is the VarioRip 310-2M, like I said earlier. So what the 310 represents is 310 millimeters of usable arbor space. The 2M represents 2 moving blades. The chain on this machine is 340 millimeters wide. And these are our moving blades. Sean, if you could move the blade back and forth, we'll kind of show you how the blades move. So that's just the blades moving back and forth, and all that would be done automatically as the machine runs. Also, what we have on here is the Quick Fix Arbor. So how our Arbor works is, of course, these blades are always moving back and forth to different positions, but the inside blades are called our fixed blades. The fixed blades are locked into position with hydraulic pressure. So how that works is there's hydraulic fluid inside the arbor under these keyways. When we loosen up this nut, the keyways shrink down. Then you can set your fixed blades into a different position. Typically, people have a block of wood cut out to drop it down to maybe 1 5/8. Once you set that blade in place with that block, you tighten this back up, hand tight, and it locks it into place with hydraulic pressure. This is a system that we've had on these machines, I don't even know how long. I'd say at least 20 years, and it did win the one of the awards at one of the shows in Atlanta, I think back in 2000 when it was kind of a new machine. Maybe it was 2002, I can't remember exactly when, but it was before my time. This is our pressure plate. Our pressure plate is what keeps pressure on the material as it comes through the machine. This is a really important piece of the machine, as well as the spikes in our waffle chain. So you can see the little spikes on these chain. So what that does is grips the wood as it travels through the machine. And with these spikes in the chain and this pressure plate here, we can guarantee a glue line at 160 feet a minute. That's the feed speed of this machine, 162 feet a minute. And that's something that a lot of our competition will not do, is be able to directly glue off of a machine like this. So that's one of our big points on our machine, is the glue line. It's a great cut, and it's been a great product for us. So next we will look at the pressure system. It's going to be kind of hard to see, but we've got 2 sets of pressure rollers in the front and 2 in the back to help guide that piece of piece of wood through the machine. So what I'm going to do now is, if you can see, we'll get a little bit more room. Our Arbor up and down is it has a motor. There's no manual crank. So right now I'm picking up the motor. And Sean is over there and he's picking up the pressure plate. All right, so now our Arbor's up. Our rollers and our pressure plate are up, and you can kind of see in there and see some of the rollers underneath. Another point to focus on is our dip chain. So if you can see here, there is a dip in the feed chain. And I'll give us a point of reference here with this. So you can actually see the space underneath that board. So what the dip chain is where we can get our saw blades down below the bottom of the board. That really gives us the ability to get that nice clean cut and run this chain at 162 feet a minute. We've also got prism guides that keep the chain nice and parallel to the Arbor, and that's how we're gonna achieve that good glue line cut. One more point on the machine. Yeah, let's look back down there. We'll take a look at the rollers. There's the dip chain. And there's the pressure rollers and kickback fingers in there. You can see them. All right, on the outfeed side of the machine, this is a driven roller. What this driven roller does is it helps get all the material out of the saw as boards feed. So you'll see a lot of saws where they don't have a driven outfeed roller, and boards tend to get hung up in the back of the machine. So this driven roller helps push the boards out. So if you're going to have a process after the rip saw, we'll say a rip saw outfeed, this gives you the ability to link this to another piece of equipment. So one that you maybe saw yesterday is this machine automatically feeding a crosscut saw in our Hickory, North Carolina facility. Without this roller, it would be very difficult to get those boards all the way out to ensure they're always coming out, because your board has to clear if you're going to have any material handling after the saw. Another one that's nice on this machine is there is a brush underneath to help keep the material clean, or your chain clean. And that's been coming standard on our machines for a couple years now. One more item we can do, we don't have it on this machine, but we can do an outfeed monitor. So the outfeed monitor is a monitor that sits up in the air. You can put it on the back of the machine, and it alerts the person tailing the machine what was actually being ripped. So for example, a problematic area sometimes for a tailer is when they have multiple fixed widths that are being ripped and a piece of random for edge glue. It's very hard to distinguish which piece goes in which pile. So the way that we deal with that at the Weinig Group is, one way is to print on the board a distinguishing mark for later down the process on what that piece actually becomes. But we also can do a more cost-effective solution is an outfeed monitor. So it'll tell you what's being ripped by the saw, so the tailor knows where each piece goes. Because you'll hear it from the molder guys, whenever a piece makes it to their pile and it's about to go through the molder and it's undersized, now they're off 10 feet, you got to go back, interrupt the job that's on the rip saw, re-rip 2 pieces. If you're running just in time, we need to make sure that everything gets placed where it needs to get placed after it's ripped. One more item we can look at, we'll walk around the back of the saw. All right, so this is our saw arbor right here. So our saw arbor is not directly coupled to our motor. This is the 50 horse motor. We've got belts that drive our saw arbor. These are our 2 motors for positioning our saw blades. So this is axis 2, this is axis 1. That's what's driving our blades back and forth. We've got proximity switches to keep anything from ever bumping into each other. And we've got some other oil pump down here. This is our feed motor. Central lube. We've done most of our machines have central lube now, so you have one point to go ahead and get the grease gun on instead of having to go around and figure out where all the grease points are and missing one. There's our central lube. All right, and this is our chain lubrication tank. So the chain lubrication tank has a float switch on it. If you ever run the machine low on oil, what it does is alerts the operator on the control panel that the float switch has been let down, and then it won't allow you to run until you fill it back up, just to ensure oil is always getting on the chain. So that's some of the main points on the machine. I could go around all day on this, but it's I was a technician on these machines for a while, and so I really like to talk the technical side of it. So we'll go on back around the front. So what I hear a lot from customers is, how do I know if I'm a good candidate for a machine like this? And I would say anybody that has got a molder is a definite candidate. Anybody that has got, we'll say, if you're spending a lot of time sorting through lumber in order to rip one size at a time, it might be worth looking into the savings in time that you have by going with a moving blade rip saw. Of course, we still do make a gang rip saw with no moving blades, but predominantly this is the biggest seller in our Ryman rip saw line. And if you're going through enough material, this makes a lot of sense to group your jobs together to save on time and material yield. So that's about all I have on the rip saw. So now I'm going to turn it over to Brett Reed.
Travis, thank you. That was fantastic. You know your rip saws inside and out. That's great. And that's a very knowledgeable person. If you have any questions about rip saws, by all means, get in touch with Travis. Give us a call here, or give us a call at the Scarlett boys. So I want to bring in James and Chris, and just thank you, gentlemen, for hosting us today. It was fantastic. We really enjoyed it. The facility is great. Your team's fantastic as well, and we enjoyed being here. So, anything?
Thanks for coming. We appreciate you guys bringing the Re-Tool Tour to Grand Rapids, Michigan. Happy to be a part of it. Thanks for including us, and hopefully the demonstrations were helpful. And if you have any more questions, if you're here local in the Midwest, please reach out to us here at Scarlett Machinery. Happy to do more of these demos in kind of a one-on-one type basis. So give us a call if you have any questions.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Brett. Appreciate it.
Okay, that will wrap up day 3. We're 60% done in our ambitious 5-day, 5-state tour. So we will be leaving Michigan. We've got a flight out this afternoon, and we will be heading to Utah. So we will see everybody in Utah tomorrow for Axis International? Axis Machinery, that's right. Yeah. Axis Machinery. Sorry, Wes. But we will see everybody there tomorrow, and we get to hook up with Mr. Turner again today, and yeah, we'll see everybody tomorrow in